The celestial void does not just want to kill us. It wants to erase the very fact that we ever existed. On the colony world of Kronos 4, we encountered the most terrifying weapon in the cosmic arsenal, reverse entropy. We call the attackers the Rebirth-Wraiths. They are shimmering, translucent horrors that don't fire bullets or plasma. They fire beams of pure, concentrated yesterday. When a wraith beam hits a target, time doesn't stop. It flows backward at a violent, accelerated rate. We watched in horror as 20-year-old Marines were struck and regressed into teenagers, then toddlers, then nothingness, all in the span of 3 seconds. Their clothes became too big, their weapons fell from tiny, undeveloped hands, and then they were just gone, unborn into the vacuum of space. The wraiths were turning our colonies into empty wilderness, reversing centuries of terraforming and construction until only the silent, ancient dust remained. The Federation realized that traditional soldiers were too vulnerable. A young man has too little time to lose. To fight a war against the past, we needed men and women with deep reservoirs of years. We needed the eternal guardians. We are a battalion of veterans, the youngest among us is 75. We are the grandfathers and grandmothers of the war. We wear stasis lock armor, heavy, pressurized suits etched with blue temporal runes that act as a biological anchor. The suits pump a cocktail of stasis chemicals into our veins, locking our cellular age in a rigid loop. We don't heal, we don't age, and for a few hours in combat we cannot be rewound. We are the only ones who can stand in the path of the pale gold light and keep walking. I am Commander Silas Thorne, 82 years old, and today I am going to make sure the future actually happens. The drop into the capital city of Aderna was like falling into a broken mirror. The skyline was a chaotic mess of paradoxes. Massive skyscrapers were deconstructing in mid-air, their steel beams flying back into the foundries that no longer existed. The paved streets were turning back into dirt paths. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and the golden shimmer of the time bleed. Gravity is fluctuating. Anchors at maximum. I barked into the bone conduction comms. My voice was a gravelly rasp, a sound earned over decades of service. Unit 2, anchored. My suit is screaming, Silas. The entropy is heavy here. Unit 3, anchored. I see them. They are coming out of the cathedral of the old city. The wraiths emerged from the shimmering air like ghosts made of clockwork. They were tall, hooded shapes, their bodies composed of shifting gears and golden sand. In the center of their chests, a pendulum swung with a rhythmic, hypnotic tick that we could feel in our teeth. They raised their long, spindly arms and the golden beams lashed out. Contact. Shields up. Form the phalanx. We slammed our heavy Pavis shields into the dirt. The shields were coated in Kronos lead, the only material dense enough to absorb temporal radiation. The golden beams hit the shields with a sound like 1,000 clocks shattering. The impact didn't push us back physically, but I felt the weight of the years pressing against my stasis lock. My suit groaned, the blue runes flickering as they fought to keep my cells from regressing. Open fire. Break their rhythm. We unleashed the Kronos breakers. These were heavy-caliber kinetic cannons that fired slugs tipped with static matter, particles that had been frozen at the moment of the Big Bang. When the slugs hit a wraith, they didn't just pierce the form, they jammed the gears. I aimed my cannon at a towering wraith. I pulled the trigger, and the recoil slammed into my aged shoulder, a dull ache that my suit suppressed. The static matter slug hit the wraith's central pendulum. The golden gears inside its chest ground to a halt with a horrific, metallic shriek. The entity flickered, its translucent body turning gray and brittle before it shattered into a cloud of harmless sand. They are flanking from the alleyways. Sarah, take the left. Sarah, a 78-year-old grandmother of 6 and the best sharpshooter I ever knew, pivoted her heavy rifle. She didn't use a scope, she used the haptic feedback of the time bleed. She fired 3 shots in rapid succession. 3 wraiths, attempting to phase through a stone wall that was turning back into a quarry, were pinned in place. Their golden light sputtered and died as the static rounds neutralized their entropy fields. We pushed forward toward the great anchor. The wraiths had planted a massive rotating obelisk in the center of the city square. It was the source of the planetary rewind. It was a spear of pure anti-time, vibrating so fast it was blurring the reality around it. If we didn't shatter it in the next 10 minutes, the entire continent would revert to the Stone Age, and the billions of colonists would simply vanish from the timeline. The resistance was absolute. Hundreds of wraiths swarmed the square, creating a literal storm of golden light. The ground beneath our feet was turning into a swamp of primordial mud. My boots sank deep into the earth as the asphalt vanished. My suit is at 90% threshold. Unit 3 yelled. He was hit. A wraith had slipped through the line and fired a point-blank beam into his side. I watched as the blue runes on his armor turned red and died. The veteran, a man I had served with for 40 years, began to change. His white hair turned black. His wrinkled skin smoothed out. He dropped his heavy weapon as his muscles shrunk. In seconds he was a teenager in a suit of armor far too large for him. Then he was a child, his terrified eyes looking up at us from inside the massive helmet. "Hold on, son," I roared, but it was too late. The light consumed him and the armor fell empty onto the mud. There was no time for grief. Grief is for the future and we were running out of it. Concentrate all fire on the obelisk. Ignore the wraiths. We broke the phalanx. It was a suicide charge. We sprinted through the golden storm, our Chronos breakers roaring. I felt the entropy beams glancing off my armor. Each hit felt like a cold needle being driven into my heart. My suit's life support was screaming warnings. I was losing my connection to the present. My vision blurred as I saw flashes of my own childhood, the face of my mother, the smell of a farm that had been ash for 60 years. I am Silas Thorne. I am 82 years old. And I am not done yet. I screamed, forcing the memories back into the dark. I reached the base of the obelisk. The vibration was so intense it was liquefying my internal organs despite the stasis field. The air was a whirlwind of golden sand. I looked up at the towering spire of anti-time. It was the heart of the void, a cold, unliving thing that hated the pulse of life. "Sarah." "The charges." Sarah slid across the mud, dodging a golden beam by inches. She slammed 2 static core demolition charges onto the base of the obelisk. "Timer set. 5 seconds. Get back." We didn't run. We couldn't. The wraiths had surrounded us, their arms raised for a final, synchronized strike. A wall of golden light was descending upon us. I looked at Sarah. She looked at me. We were 2 old soldiers who had seen the beginning of the war, and we were damn well going to see the end of this day. I slammed my Pava shield into the mud and pulled Sarah behind it. "Die, you clockwork bastards," I whispered. The static core charges detonated. It wasn't a fire explosion. It was a ripple of absolute, frozen silence. A wave of black static matter erupted from the charges, instantly neutralizing the entropy of the obelisk. The spire didn't blow up, it stopped. It turned into a pillar of inert, gray stone. The feedback was instantaneous. Without the anchor, the wraith's connection to our reality was severed. The golden storm vanished. The hundreds of clockwork ghosts let out a collective, haunting chime before they dissolved into nothingness. The time bleed stopped. The city of Aeterna didn't turn back into a metropolis. The buildings that had been erased stayed gone. The people who had been unborn stayed in the void. But the deconstruction halted. The dirt stayed dirt. The remaining towers stayed standing. The future, what was left of it, was locked back into place. I fell to my knees in the mud, my suit finally powering down. The blue runes were dark. I felt the weight of my 82 years return to me all at once, every ache, every scar, every tired breath. I pulled off my helmet and inhaled the air. It smelled of ozone and wet earth. It was the smell of the present. "Silas?" Sarah asked, crawling out from behind the shield. Her face was pale, her white hair matted with sweat and mud, but she was still 78. She was still here. "We're still here, Sarah," I panted. "We won the minute." I looked around the square. It was a graveyard of empty armor and silent stone, but the sky was no longer gold. It was the dark, beautiful black of a regular night. The stars were shining, and for once they were just stars, not devourers or architects. Humanity had proven the ultimate truth of the celestial void. You can try to rewind our history. You can try to unmake our lives. You can even try to turn us back into the dust we came from. But we have deep roots. We have the weight of the years on our side, and we are not going anywhere. The obelisk is shattered. The wraiths are gone. Chronos 4 is still on the map. The mission is over. We are old, we are tired, but we are still in the timeline. And that is more than enough.